Hey, what's up, people? I was out the other day doing some photography. Fortunately, had some nice, clear skies here in Illinois the last several days or so. Here's the first shot. Not much to see there, right? And again, that's what the camera sees. Basically, that's what my eye sees, and that's why nobody sees Planet X or Nibiru out there because it's simply not visible with the naked eye, period. Uh, Depending on its orbit, which, may be a corkscrew orbit, I don't know. Only NASA knows, and they're not talking. Uh, it does break above the horizon. I have seen this object naked eye, which is why I've been pursuing it since April. Uh, so I've had naked eye confirmation and camera confirmation. That's why I continue to do what I do. But anyway, this is a classic example of what the camera sees and what the eye sees. But once you start applying the proper filtration, this is what's there. So just because you can't see it with the naked eye does not mean it's not there. Uh, the more I study this, I'm probably many thousands of shots into this pursuit now. Uh, I'm just totally convinced it's real. Totally convinced it's there. Uh, it's the, just below the sun, and in this picture here, the sun is not in frame. That's the corona, or the radiation light from the sun. Uh, and it's still bright enough to where it's blinding. You can't look into it with ease. So when I do my photography, I'm using a nice pair of Polaroid glasses. But you can see moon, primary object, secondary object. The secondary objects are also real. From what I've been looking at here, the Nibiru system, from what I can see, is at least the one primary object here, and then three more objects around this size are smaller. They're not always in view, but every now and then, if you take enough pictures, they begin to pop up. Now, somebody had asked me to put my finger in front of the lens and see if I could block out the sun. Well, again, the sun's never in any of these frames. I purposefully block it out to avoid flaring and other camera artifacts, which isn't 100% guarantee that you're not going to get them, but it does help. I didn't do that. I didn't. I put a book in front of the lens, and it didn't. Because of the autofocus and a few other things, the length of the lens, it was just too cumbersome. So, but better yet, I was fortunate enough to have some clouds come across the frame while I was photographing. And as you can see, orbitals here. The other specks, there's still some cottonwoods in the environment, not as bad as it was a couple weeks ago, but they're still there. Late summer, late spring this year. Normally by now they'd be in a normal season. They're here in May and pretty much gone in June, but we're still seeing them here in July. But as you can see, clouds across the frame, object clearly behind the clouds. Okay, so what does that mean? That means the first thing I need to do is eliminate camera artifacts, lensing, ghosting, other weird stuff that happens with optics. So I'm 100% sure this is not a lens flare. This is not at all visible in the viewfinder. This object here is not visible in the viewfinder. A typical lens flare is visible, and I can control where it goes. Also, a lens flare would appear over the clouds, not in the dimension behind the clouds. So this is just as good as putting your finger up. Actually, it's better because the clouds are actually in the environment. So you could see the dimension here. So that rules out a flare. Okay, that rules out a flare. Flare does not appear behind the cloud structure. So it could be ghosting. It could be some other type of camera artifact. This camera has a 300 millimeter Nikkor lens with a 1.5 teleconverter on it. Now that teleconverter can introduce interesting artifacts. So after this session here that you're looking at, I went out yesterday, and that session I had removed the teleconverter, but still got the same results, the objects there. So that rules out the teleconverter introducing any type of artifact. But anyway, let me go through and proceed with the findings here. As you can see, nicely behind the clouds, probably an orbital. Let me go back to this guy. Was that the one? Let me see. Maybe not. Anyway, there's kind of an interesting, almost facial feature that begins to show up on some of these. It's almost like a smiley face, for lack of a better description. And that's been very consistent throughout my photography. So here it is again, a little bit of a different filter. Clouds clearly in front of the object. And you got that reddish gaseous or iron oxide environment, as some people describe it, around the object. There it is again, behind the clouds. And I'll just rifle through these. There's a nice one behind the clouds here. A little bit of a different filter. Kind of have a heat source above it here. Zoom back out here, see what this guy looks like. So I'm not getting the detail I would like to see on the target object here. So what I did yesterday is I went to ISO. I dropped this down to 100, and I had removed the teleconverter. Unfortunately, at 100 ISO, that forced me to drop the f-stop down to, let's say, 7.5, which was a mistake because that higher f-stop turns out to give me the, obviously, depth of field and quite a bit more detail that I'm looking for. So, but I'll pause this presentation so I can load up yesterday's shots and show you what those results were. But anyway, these were clear. And again, here's what the camera sees. Now this, if you look hard enough, you can see the object here. Sun would be just out of frame above here. I mean, let's see. Let me see if I have some settings that I could quickly paste in here. Okay, that's pretty dark. Let's see if I can up the exposure. Yeah, it pops right out. But again, at 400 ISO, I'm not quite seeing the detail I'd like to see on this. So I'm going to continue to work at ISO 100. Keep the f-stop high and drop the shutter rate to reach proper exposure. I think probably, I'm guessing the shutter rate is less critical than the ISO and the f-stop. So if you have a 35 millimeter digital, and I'd recommend at least you could probably get away with a 200 millimeter, but 300 or above would be nice with a tripod, of course. Then those would be the recommended settings. ISO 100, highest f-stop you could use, and go ahead and drop the shutter speed down and see what results you get. I haven't tried it yet. It's my intention to get out there and give it a go today. So let me keep rifling through again here. You can see it's the reds come out on top where of course the sunlight would be, so that would be the heat source. That would make sense. And then you got this kind of a reddish cloud above it. And let me go ahead and paste the settings in there and see what this guy comes up with. Pretty dark. Up the exposure a bit. And there you go. And if I were to do all the photos, that's where you begin to see the moons pop in, pop out. They're there, they're not, which would be indicative of it rotating around the back of the object. Paste here, see what we get. Pretty high. And I'll keep going, moving on here. I tried some other filters. Grab this guy real quick and paste him in there. Settings, paste. Yeah, it's up the exposure. And it pops up pretty nice there. I'm trying to find one where the moons are actually visible. Try this guy here. Settings, paste. And this may be an orbital up here because it's been showing up. Exposure. This is kind of interesting here, this one. This is that kind of facial feature. Almost looks like a smiley face. I think what we're seeing on here is you have a quadrant here, one up here, and one up here. They're fairly symmetrical. And then at times you can have bands coming across here and maybe a center line. And that's why I want to drop that ISO down to see if I could begin to bring out some of the other detail in this object. Let's see, fill light. I don't really want to play with it now because it takes a little too much doing. But you could see what I'm talking about here. You almost have a smiley face, a nose. And it's ever changing, this object or objects. You get a different look each and every time. It's really something. And let me keep rifling through here. Different filter. Zoom out a bit. Got some orbitals here and here now. Orbital here, up there. Maybe one in front, hard to tell. This down here, I believe that is a camera aberration there. It's a lens anomaly. Zoom in a little bit here. And let's paste some settings in here and see what I get. Oh, that's real dark. Up the exposure. Moon. And again, I think at the ISO 100, uh, I think I'll better be able to capture some of the travelers with the X object here, because there's definitely more than one sizable object out there. You don't always catch them, but they're there every now and then. They'll pop into frame. Let's paste some settings into this guy. See what we get. It's pretty dark. It's really faint in that one. Let me. That's there. Sometimes if we add some more black, that helps, but other times it's just difficult to bring it out. There it is again, very, very faint. Yeah, now you guys probably can't pick it up at all, but it's right. It's right here. Look at the settings. Well, yeah, so the f-stop, interesting because now it's down to f14. So f14, you could, although I see the object here on my screen, we'll go back to 1 where it's very clear, and this one's already up to f29. So that f-stop seems to make a critical difference. f25 on that, f32. So yeah, again, if you're going out with a 35 millimeter digital, definitely try to get the highest f-stop you can. It does make a difference. Now this is probably about 7:30 Central, and sun's up here, and here's the target object. And again, behind the tree line, behind the clouds. Probably some type of infrared filter here. This is where the object would be, and you can see some difference there. Let me paste the other settings in and see if it pulls anything out. Goes a little bit more of the red. Right there it is. Right there. Again, behind the trees, slightly behind the clouds. Anyway, I'm going to pause right now, guys, to load up yesterday's shots. So, be right back. Okay, so I've reloaded yesterday's photos. And again, the important thing here is I took the teleconverter off. I switched ISO to 100. And as you can see, I had to open up my f-stop all the way to 9.0, which on the previous outing, it was up in the 20s, high 20s, maybe 30, but certainly not below F20. So what results in that is definitely a washed out picture. You just don't get the focal length detail that you need, that depth of field. Uh, so, it's good to know. Now I know how to dial in this camera and hopefully get better results. So that's what I see. That's what the camera sees. Not much to see. Once you apply the filters, then things begin to pop out. Very faint right there, but there it is. Sun would be just above frame here, just slightly out of frame. And here you go again, right there. Possible moon right over there to the left. And it actually took quite a bit of work to even pull these images out with the filtering, but definitely the same object, same place, same time. Here's one here. You got a moon in front right here. Zoom in on that a little bit. There's a moon. There's the object. Hopefully this is coming through okay in the YouTube translation. Zoom back out. There's an orbital there, one there. There's the primary object here. And again, it's what the camera sees, that's what I see. It's very difficult to photograph because you can't see it. So you just, you hope you're pointing the camera at the right place in the sky. Obviously, I've come to understand that it's just directly below the sun between 7 and 7:30 Central, so it's not too much guesswork anymore. Here it is again, different filter. There it is again, different filter. Right here. And at F1 ISO 100, I begin to see some more gradation, a little bit more detail. I think with the higher f-stop, I should really have some decent results. Very faint there. I can barely see it from my end. And there's almost that smiley face there. The eye. That's what I hope to bring out with the lower ISO and the higher f-stop. Try to capture some more of that detail. Got a couple orbitals right here in front of it. Two dark spots, almost has a facial feature to it. This one I can't even see. There it is. Faint. Yeah, so I played on this outing. I had to play quite a bit with the filtering. Just to get anything to show up. There it is there. Two moons right here, 1, 2. I don't know how well it shows up. There it is here. Got one moon over here. Right here. This is a little later in the day, more towards sunset. So that's about it for now, guys. Again, if you're going to go out and shoot this, it's just below the sun. You'd want to keep the sun out of frame. The object's just below the sun. I recommend you shoot at a ISO 100, highest f-stop possible, and then drop your shutter speed down accordingly. Then, of course, if you have a program like Lightroom, the filters certainly help quite a bit. It makes all the difference in the world at times. But yeah, I think once I get that camera dialed in, I should be able to get visible results even without filtration. That's the goal, to get the best possible results from the camera without any computer aid whatsoever. That's not to say I won't use filtering, but I want to get these pictures to stand on their own as much as possible with just the camera settings. So until then, guys, we'll talk to you later, and I'll report back with my results as soon as I get them. Take care now.